talked a little bit yesterday about Governor J.B. Pritzker, who's set to deliver his budget and State of the State address today. And you can kind of see some of the messaging he's already put out over the past few days, talking about 4 years in, listing everything he says are accomplishments. This is a Twitter post just highlighting increasing the minimum wage, legalizing adult use cannabis, getting 6 credit upgrades, banning the sale of assault weapons, he says, funding historic levels of child care in K through 12 and higher education. So you can expect that the governor is going to be talking about these things and more when he addresses a joint session of the Illinois House and Senate at the state capitol today. And he's also going to be laying out his budget proposal for the year ahead, the budget year that begins July 1st. So this is something that happens every year. The governor makes the budget address and the State of the State address. Typically, in years before Pritzker took office, it was 2 separate speeches. There was the State of the State speech, and then there was the budget speech. But really, it's a look at what to expect ahead. And with Pritzker having supermajority Democrats in both chambers, you can expect that a lot of what he says today likely will come to fruition. It's expected he's going to talk a lot about education funding, everything from early childhood to higher education. He's already discussed to a degree about subsidizing families to get access to higher education. How's that going to look for K through 12 or even for the issue of pre-K and kindergarten? So those are just some of the things that we could hear more about. But I chatted with lawmakers from both sides in the lead up to today, and just to kind of hear a little bit of what some of these lawmakers hope to hear from Governor J.B. Pritzker. I connected with State Senator Steve Stottlemyj just briefly last week at the Illinois State House and asked him what he's looking for. And in particular, Stottlemyj, he didn't have a specific thing that he was looking for from the governor.
Nothing specifically. I mean, obviously, his chance to put out his agenda, and then we'll spend the next several months analyzing an agenda and collaborating. But, I think we've been on a good financial path a couple of years. We've been paying backlog of bills. We've been balancing our budget. The revenue stream is still pretty good. So honestly, a continuation of that. We have a lot of fiscal issues that have been building up over the decades, and I think the past several years we've really gotten our fiscal house in order. I just want to see that trend continue. So, that's kind of the underlying current I would like to see in the months ahead as we negotiate a new budget.
And again, that's Steve Stottlemyj, a Rockford Democrat. And as I said, the governor's already teased some of the issues that he's looking to talk about, including education funding. And in particular, he talked during his inauguration about higher education and subsidizing certain families with certain income to get access to higher education here in Illinois. But the specifics, I guess, proof's in the pudding, so to speak. Again, more from Steve Stottlemyj.
Very specific. I mean, obviously, we all want to increase access to early childhood education and make sure access to higher education is available for as many people as possible. But you're right. It comes down to specifics, how expensive the program, and who exactly will be taking advantage of these programs.
So that's a Democrat state senator. What about a Republican state representative? Dan Ugasti connected with him at the State House, and he shared some of his thoughts of what he wants to hear the governor talk about.
Well, hopefully that we actually start some structural reform within the state of Illinois and start addressing the real issues that cause problems with our budget year after year. We've had some extra revenue over the last few years, but we can't count on that, and I believe we all know that, and inflation's going to start catching up with the state too. So we need to start making some of these structural changes, pensions, spending in other areas where we could make savings, and just start addressing some of these to help the people of the state of Illinois.
But one thing that's been happening, not much attention focused, at least explicitly at the Illinois State House, but if you look at the numbers, we've got large pension debt, unfunded pension liability. Another figure, we've got continued outbound migration year after year after year for 9 years in a row, an estimated increase of people leaving the state for other states. We lost people enough to lose a seat in Congress, so we have less representation in the U.S. Congress. Ugasty doesn't expect this to be discussed at all during Governor's budget and State of the State speech.
I don't anticipate it at all. They don't want to talk about it because it's something obviously that isn't favorable to the state, and I think reflects badly on how we're running the state of Illinois. I think it's a multi-factor problem, but the first thing is we have to start addressing those structural problems, because until we do that, businesses are not going to want to grow here, are not going to want to locate here as much as they would. I mean, sure, we're going to get a few here and there. It's always going to happen, but not as much as we would, so the opportunity won't be here, so that people will stay within the state, people will come to our state, we'll be a magnet again, rather than an outlier that's actually losing population.
So again, just hearing some of what lawmakers are hoping to do. We'll hear more of that coming up, but of course we'll take your phone calls as they come in, live and local. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, and you are on the air. What's up?
Morning, Bishop.
Hey.
I'd like to hear him talk about DCFS.
Recent reports have come out to indicate that there have been more children killed that were under the eye of DCFS, or at least 12 months out from being in contact with DCFS. That's 49 more kids that have been that are dead. You've got lawmakers urging for there to be a change up at DCFS, including Mark Smith, who's still in that office despite being found in contempt 12 times, I think. I don't know if he's going to talk about the problems at DCFS.
My assumption is he probably won't, because it doesn't fit his analogy, or not his analogy, his
agenda,
his spectrum,
okay.
Agenda. Yeah,
sure.
It doesn't fit his agenda, because he knows that it's not a good thing right now, and that's all he's going to talk about is all the good. I guarantee you that's how they do it. You know how they do it.
Well, and we'll see what happens. Now, Republicans, they, of course, are in the super minority. How are they going to be able to impact policy moving forward? We'll hear a little bit of a preview of what at least House Republicans are looking to do. So stay tuned. We'll get to that next year with Springfield's Morning News, but you can always chime in live and local, 217-629-7970. Stay tuned. So Governor J.B. Pritzker delivering his budget and State of the State speech today, getting a little bit of an idea of what some lawmakers are thinking and what some of the major issues may be brought up. In particular, you've got the issue of education, which very much is something your tax dollars go to in a substantial amount. Yesterday, there was a hearing in the House Appropriations Committee to talk about the evidence-based funding model. For those of you who've been tracking this for a long time, you know that this was a big fight, and actually they came to a grand bargain of sorts during the Rauner administration to usher in the evidence-based funding model. But you had Advance Illinois testifying remotely to the House Appropriations Committee. Robin Staines, she said that the model is succeeding in funding things properly, but of course, she says they need more money. So here she is.
Only 2 districts are below 60% of full funding. So a huge amount of progress in a relatively short period of time. Lots of work still to do, because half of our students are still in districts below 75% of adequacy.
Now, Ralph Martiri, he's with the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability. He said that the program deserves more money in order to be even more successful, he laid out. Here he is.
What's great about having the evidence-based funding formula is we could evaluate it with data to see whether or not it is working, and it is. And in fact, a strong argument could be made that the data suggests a greater investment ought to be going in.
But after the hearing, State Representative Brad Halbrook, he said that despite increased funding, schools still have low test scores, and that's a problem.
And to their point, they are spending record levels of money on education. However, we're seeing a downturn in test scores, in the math proficiencies, in the reading proficiencies.
And he also lays out that lawmakers need to be better stewards of tax dollars.
As a steward of the taxpayers' money, they want to know that they're getting a good value for their money. And these scores, the proficiency in math and reading, for the most part, do not indicate that that's happening.
Again, that's State Representative Brad Halbrook reacting to some of what was heard about the evidence-based funding model, and public school advocates urging for more money to go into those programs. We may hear more about that. We may hear more about higher education funding, pre-K funding. We'll hear probably about other new programs the governor wants to start and what agenda he's looking to set heading for the next year in the state of Illinois. Now, lawmakers are in session for spring session until mid-May. They've got until May 31st to pass a budget with a simple majority, and that budget year starts July 1st. So put that all on your calendar. All right, hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of what to expect today.